While helping us to build our world, these giants began building our minds. And they did this by creating this. A megalithic stone structure that has defied the ages and confounded our intellect. They are stone structures that could have been created by God Himself, and to a lesser degree, aliens. Each stone monument is an enduring enigma that baffles our new and supreme technological age. Massive structures that are impossible to recreate, and yet there is something within us that tells us that there is more to this story than what meets the eye. All who feel this way are correct. Your soul does not lie, and there is a lot more here than what is perceptible to the human mind. Within each massive stone are the answers to our greatest questions, because each stone contains the knowledge of the world that was before our own. Each aged and craggy rock is well fed and made fat with the blood of man. They hold the bones and brawn of a dead and ancient age, an age that was exactly like our own. We see their faces, we touch their hands, and we still don't know them. After more than 50,000 years, they're still reaching out to us and begging us to come closer, to look closer, to listen, to try, to understand. They are enigmas to which there has never been an answer. That is, until now. They are older than our world and greater than our minds. And yet nearly every star-faring vehicle that visits this earth, these stone monoliths are also a UFO beacon. For as many years as there are these stones, the same can be said of UFOs. These unidentified flying machines are consistently seen and photographed near each of these ancient sites. No matter what side of the globe we're on, if there is a megalithic stone structure, UFOs will come to it. Each of these well-known locations are hotspots for UFO visitations. They are regularly seen in each location and almost like clockwork. Each stone structure is a creation of great importance for alien life. And to the hour, the aliens always return. It is a conundrum that every ufologist and intellectual has wrestled with for years. And yet, after 5,000 years of research, we are still clueless. The reason we are clueless is here, the Great Pyramid of Egypt. It is a fountain of knowledge and the spirit of a supreme designer. It leads us into the stars and also to the house of our God. And yet there is something else about this structure that links every human being in the world to it. And the link is here. A humble and unobtrusive stone that is in and of itself nothing more than a rock. However, looks can be very deceiving, because each of these stones will tell us the greatest story on earth. A story that will humble you. A story that will crumble you. Because it is also a story that will break your heart in two. These mysterious gems of stone are more valuable to mankind than any other gemstone on this earth. All of the precious jewels of this world cannot equal the value of just one of these stones. These worn and craggy rocks are made precious by the hands of those who made them, and they are blessed by the hands of those who painted them 50,000 years ago. These stones are aged, but they do not age. They are flawed, and yet perfect in every way. They are more important than anything else on the surface of this earth. because the builders created them for only one purpose. They created them for us. They were created with a message that was made to endure the ravages of time, so that 50,000 years later, we would receive it. And this message in stone is a holy message, a powerful message, and a supreme message. On the face of nearly every great stone structure around the world is a hand, a human hand, a hand made to signify that of human beings, and also a hand made to signify the hand of the God of the cosmos. These reflections from a time long gone are made for a time called right now. Their world was ours, and their world is ours today. Over 100,000 years ago, the earth lived and then died, and it has been living and dying ever since. However, nearly 100,000 years ago, they painted, they chiseled, and they carved a great warning, a warning so powerful that it will separate the soul from the spirit. Whether we like it or not, they who came before us were better than us, and their faith was greater than our own. In 5000 BC, the sons of God and the star people came to our world, and they restarted our civilization. Within this civilization is the knowledge of what killed the previous world. In the ancient world, the hand of these technological mortals was to the ancients the hand of God. They left these ancient clues in plain sight, hoping that one of us will come. Before each world died, they secretly placed a sophisticated writing in stone and also in paint. And each stone worker and each stone painter prayed that one day one will be born, 50, 60, or 70,000 years in the future, who will understand. A hope and a prayer that he or she will know what this means and also know what to do. These stones, however crude and undesirable as they may appear, are in fact worth more than gold. Within every megalithic monstrosity is a Christ, a God, and salvation, because understanding these aged rocks will give birth to all three. The knowledge found in each of these stones will transform you, and to know what they mean will completely change you into something that is greater than anything you could ever imagine. To all of the world, these are just pyramids, a boring heap of rock, and a mysterious triangle made of stone. However, it is the Mayans and the Aztecs which give us our greatest clue as to the meanings of these pyramids, because they each called these man-made mountains something else. They called them Teotihuacan, and this holy and powerful name means the place where man became God. And yes, this is true, because to understand this knowledge and harness its power will make a man and a woman greater than just a man and woman. It is the Prometheus stone, and understanding its purpose will lift man so high that it will make man equal with that of his dreams, because within each stone is the knowledge of immortality. Our last gasps of life is understanding these rocks. They're all granite, and they're all megaliths, and yet there is one thing we have missed. They all carry an electromagnetic field. Nearly every megastructure has an electrical field or current running through it. This is the part of the human story where the mystery of life ends. These electromagnetic properties not only serve the ancients, but they will also serve us. In the end of our world, all technology will be disabled, and all high-tech power sources will be eliminated. However, these magnetically charged stones act as a compass, and each is aligned true north, with many giving off a charge so powerful it can move the needle on a compass. This function of the stones is to allow the process of flight to continue even after the world dies. Nonetheless, there is one more thing about the stones that is more important than all the others. The stones upon sight, they amaze you, they stagger you, and they humble you. That is the purpose of their creation. And yet there is another purpose of its creation, which is the foundation of all creation. The stone structures are made for its most important purpose. And the most important purpose of the stones is for us to touch it. Each stone structure is made for us to come to it, to walk on it, to touch it, and to kiss it. We run our fingers over it, our lips against it, and we lay the sweat of our brow upon it. We rub our face against it and our skin across it as our hair abounds as it falls upon it. Because there is another reason these stones are charged with electromagnetic properties. And they are charged because these stones are created for us to touch them. And when we touch them, they collect our DNA. Every drop of sweat, every hair, saliva, skin cells, and even our air is taken into the rock. These stones are data collection devices. It is a subtlety of genius and the hand of our Creator, and it is also the reason UFOs return to these sites. They return to these sites to collect our data. These stones can decipher our DNA and can reveal the health of our world, the health of our people, and even potential diseases. The Stargate is here, and the Stargate is waiting for us. There are steps that we must take before we can reach it. And the first step is to shed our skins of all the things that divide us. For we will walk into the cosmos and into the new world of knowledge with new hope and a new tomorrow. We cannot carry our old world and our old ways with us. We must shake off our old clothes and our old beliefs. We cannot go into the cosmos as Jews, Christians, Muslims, or Hindu. For this part of our journey, we can't be any of these things. And if we are, then we are not ready to go. For this part of our human story, in order for us to be successful, we can only be one thing: humans. The hope of our future rests with the faithful. And in the end, it is the faithful who will determine how our world ends. Whether scientists, pragmatists, or atheists, one must come to understand the importance of faith. All of the words of God tells us that our end comes. And although our numbers are as the sand of the sea, only a few of us will survive. The end of the world is a fiery one, and yet all words of God on this earth, they tell us why. And the reason is because we refuse knowledge, and we refuse to accept knowledge. In the late 11th century, a satanic creation came upon this earth. And when it came upon this earth, it filled the faithful with a horror and a fear that they've never seen before. It was so foreboding that men could not even look upon it for fear of it. This vile and demonic spawn of hell was called a dinner fork. Yes, it is a sad thing to say, and yet it is all truth. This humble addition to our dinner table was called by the faithful the work of the devil. They recoiled at the creation of something that would interfere with one eating from hand to mouth. And this scenario is not unique. And there is yet more. Music instruments, when they were first created, were also called the work of the devil. When the electric light bulb was invented, it too was called the work of the devil. When the automobile, when the airplane, and even when medicine that would save your life was created, it was called the work of the devil. These examples are not meant to be disparaging, and instead they are here to highlight the inability for the faithful to accept wisdom and new knowledge. Their first impression of anything that they don't understand is automatically called the work of evil. The reason these examples are so important is because, in the end, it will be the faithful who will determine what happens to the planet. It will be the religious who will decide what happens to the rest of us. There are nearly 6 billion peoples of faith on this earth, which means only they have the power to change it. Their numbers alone will tell us what will happen to the rest of us. In the future, new knowledge will come, and it will come with earth changes that will threaten the life of earth. It is then when we will need the Muslim, we will need the Jew, the Christian, and the Hindu, and all peoples of faith, and we will need them, because it will be a time when we must unite. Whether we believe in a supreme being or not, our end is in the hands of the faithful. They will determine whether we accept the new world or whether we live or die.
This is the tree of life, and above it is the symbol of God. This symbol is the first symbol of God found in this world, and it is Sumerian. Sumeria is the first civilization on earth, circa 5000 BC. We are taught that during this period, mankind was in the Stone Ages, brutes and savages who were just learning how to write and to clothe themselves. The world was separated by vast oceans and seas, and mankind had no contact between the continents. We are taught that the cradle of civilization is the Middle East and Sumeria. Unfortunately, everything you have ever been taught about our beginnings is no longer of any value anymore. Brace yourselves and gather your hearts, for what comes next
is the wiping away of all of our histories. It is the end of our world. The oceans of the world are vast, and there is no way a 5,000-year-old boat made with primitive tools could have ever crossed these oceans. This is true, and yet not quite. This is a 5,000-year-old Sumerian symbol of God. It is a simple design denoting a circle with wings of a bird, and it is also a symbol of power and dominion over man. However, where we find this symbol will completely dethrone the history of our world. Look closely. This is Sumeria, a desert, all alone, with no boats, just logs and rafts. However, you find this same symbol far away in Persia or modern-day Iran. And you also find it in Egypt. And even further, you find it in Babylon. And then, unbelievably, it is also found across the oceans, thousands of miles away, in a place that will stun you. This is Nazca, Peru. This one God and his symbol of dominance was all over the earth, and in a time we are taught that there was no contact between the continents. It is astounding. It is staggering. And it is also enlightening. The men of this one God were all over our world, building and teaching mankind how to live on this planet. We also find these men and this God and its symbol here in Bolivia. And we also will find them in a place which will silence you. This is the Americas, and this is the house of the Mayans. Yes, these men taught the Mayans. This Mayan symbol is exactly like all the other symbols, which mean God and the house of God, and it is found all over the entire world. And in a time where science tells us that this is impossible, how can we explain this? There is more to say, because there is something else. This symbol doesn't just mean God. It means something else, even more powerful. It means flight, air travel in the skies. When we look at every pictogram of the ancients, we see angels. And we see them because our faith tells us that they are nothing but angels. But in the ancient world, wings did not mean angels. Wings meant flight. Any pictogram or portrait bearing wings means only one thing: flight, and the ability to fly. Within each stela of God are the wings of a bird and a round disc at its center. The wings of the bird represent the flying power given to the disc. Ancient man would probably call this a flying disc. However, today we call this a flying saucer. A flying disc that is not just a disc. And unbelievably, a more perfect description is found on the walls of Egypt. This flying disc symbol is at the core of the Egyptian belief. A disc that has the light of the sun, and many believe that the Egyptians called this the sun disk. It was bright and luminescent like the sun, which means that it glowed. It also had wings, and in their skies, it looked much like it does in our skies, flying. And before you question yourselves and say, how can this be? The reason there are so many secrets hidden in paintings and carvings is because none of us on earth are supposed to know. We are not supposed to know how the world dies or what happens at the end of the world. Every clue we have is left to us by a brave man or a brave woman. Even at the threat of death, they cared for our lives more than they cared for their own. The winged sun disk is only the beginning, because the winged sun disk leads us to the winged serpent. And this serpent is so powerful and so glorious and so beyond belief that this knowledge alone will drive you to the brink of despair. Take hold of your hearts, because this is the end of everything we have ever been taught and the beginning of our new age. The serpent is a symbol of wisdom, power, and also God. The winged serpent is found in every country around this entire world. A serpent is sometimes called a dragon because it flies and breathes fire. It is more than fire. Hold your hearts, because this knowledge will light a fire of wisdom within you, and there is no extinguishing it. This is an Egyptian hieroglyph for a winged serpent. However, look closer and closer. This is a serpent. And this is a serpent stretched out. And now, a serpent with wings. This, children of men, is us. These new alien kings live so long in order to pass down this knowledge of our world to the next world. And they did this to ensure the safety of mankind. Our great kings received this immortality from heaven, but we now know that immortality is merely the changing of letters in our DNA. An ancient man who was to die at the age of 40 years old would, after gene manipulation, die at the ripe old age of 40,000 years old. Our greatest theologians and scientists call these lengths of years exaggerations, falsities, and lies. It is impossible for this to be true, and yet all written records of the ancients say that they derived their power from the gods. These flying serpents sustained many nations by bringing food and supplies, and also they gave them something else that is with us today. For without these flying serpents, many of our peoples would not have made it. The flying serpent is also the symbol of God, and the symbol is of a flying disc, and it is also two wings, and it is also a serpent. And yes, these winged serpents gave our people medicine that would save us. And with this medicine, these same gods also gave us the power of immortality. You find in the end Our enduring questions about how the ancients lived have answers. The answer is that modern man and ancient man existed at the same time. They coexisted on earth in the same place, in the same space, and at the same time. Ancient man was ancient, and modern man, with the power of the serpent, was God. He was a man and a woman who had wings on their back, and this means he and she could fly. And the symbol of a man who can fly is always the head of a bird. And the symbol of a woman who can fly is the same. All of this knowledge leads us to understanding the most dominant nation the world has ever known, Egypt. The reason they knew so much about the sun disk is because they were the only nation left on this earth who could still fly. It is a secret that completely bypasses the intellect of even the most intelligent scientist and archaeologist. However, the confirmation is here. This is Tutankhamun, and although we've seen this mask for a millennia, its true knowledge escapes us. Upon the head of the boy king are two serpents. Look closer. Closer. Only one is a serpent. The one on the left is actually a bird. The boy king could fly, and his reign was protected by the power of flight.
The proof of flight is everywhere in the ancient world, and our ability to understand it and to accept it will determine if we will survive. A great and powerful warning is given to us, and it has been staring us in the face for nearly 2,000 years. Figures, lines, and mysteries. And no one on this planet knows what they mean or why they were created. And the reason no one knows is because we look upon every ancient creation as inferior to our own misguided standard of intellect. And yet, as intelligent as we claim to be, and as superior as we believe we are, not one of us has unlocked its knowledge. Nevertheless, these ancient, dusted, and derided lines holds the answers to the greatest secrets of all time. It is a revealing of wisdom that is so powerful that it will transform our entire world. And yet, we cannot understand them until we can accept the fact that they were greater than us. And there is no place on earth that displays this reality more than Tiwanaku, Bolivia. It is a creation that has had men scratching their heads for more than 2,000 years. It is quizzical and perplexing, and yet its understanding and its answer is patently obvious to one who is willing to accept the impossible. To understand this figure, one must do something that is counterintuitive to intelligence, and that is to ignore it. Don't look upon this ragged figure or its infantile artwork, and instead look at what is beneath it, because what is beneath it holds all the knowledge. What is beneath it is a door a doorway. And a doorway is an entryway that will ultimately lead you somewhere else. It may seem to be a relic of a bygone era, and it may also appear to be incomplete and lacking in structure and knowledge. To the contrary, it is vibrant, brilliant, and bustling with undiscovered awareness, shouting, crying, and begging for one of us to look closer. The doorway is the key, and what makes it a key is the fact that it unlocks hidden and ancient mysteries all over the world. A doorway is always found in holy places, and it is created in every record and every holy carving depicting the afterlife. And yet, what is the most astounding part of this doorway is the fact that it was found in Nazca, Peru. Not only are there lines here, there is also a door, a doorway. It is a mountainous doorway, and it also has the graven image that shows a strange alien who appears to be greeting our new world. A doorway as plain and as common as it may be is ubiquitous in holy carvings. Whether Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, it's everywhere. And although Sumeria was the oldest ancient civilization on Earth, astoundingly, when this doorway is found in their ancient culture, it is called a gateway. The doorway was found to be a mystical symbol and a representation of the heavens and the netherworld. And yet what confirms the purpose of this doorway is found in its quiet, ancient, and unassuming name. And the name is Tiwanaku. And this name means the gate of the sun. This stone structure is created to represent the sun, and its symbolism and its intricate artwork are created for one purpose. It is created for us. It has been a mystery for more than 2,000 years, and again, it is only a mystery because we refuse knowledge, and we refuse to listen. This image of a ragged and broken king has a Mayan face and an Egyptian flair. And both of these things mean, look closer. He has the face of the sun and the body of a man, and his artwork represents the glowing face of the sun. In his hands are the staff of his authority, as they are two serpents, which represent authority and power. Then again, look at this enhanced version of this stela, and you will see something staggering. And that is, these aren't serpents in his hands. These are actually birds. This sun god is holding two birds as his staff of power. And this meaning couldn't be clearer. The sun has a doorway, and this creation is called the gate of the sun. And to enter into it requires that which the birds of the air find to be common: flight. Flight is the key. It represents knowledge, information, and understanding. And accepting the fact that the ancients could fly is critical to whether we do. This king is both son and God, and yet he holds these two birds with the hands of a man. This means that this knowledge of this God is made for man. It is telling us that mankind must harness the power of flight in order to reach this doorway, this sun gate. The reason this stela has remained a mystery for 2,000 years is because we were too young to understand it. All pyramids, hieroglyphs, and stelas are created to be understood only when we reach the technological age. Why? Because it is only in the technological age where we have the power to leave the earth, and also the power to change our fate. The ancient prophecy given to modern man states that we won't be able to reach the sun gate without the power of flight. Although basic and rudimentary mechanics can get us in the air, it's not enough to reach the sun. In short, they are telling us we need more power, and lots of it. Unbelievably, what will give power to our fledgling wings is found within this stela, a message, a code that we will only understand when we achieve technology, because technology gives us more power. CPU processing power. The mechanical age was never enough to help us. We needed technology. The more power we can push into a small space means more capability, high capacity power in a small engine. It is the intelligent design of spaceflight. The power of the sun regulated by a small, diminutive sun chip. This connection could not be more obvious. Computer technology, nanotechnology, and quantum technology. It is the age that they have been waiting for. We are no longer children, and we now have matured. We now have the ability to reach the unreachable, and that is the house of our Creator. It is a powerful transformation of flesh and spirit, for these new abilities will change who we are and change our purpose. This new technology gives us the power and the ability to fly, and not just to fly around the earth, but also interstellar space. The sun is the litmus test for man, and our ability to reach it is the test of our faith. For when we do, we will become something different than what we are. Reaching it will create a complete transformation, and we will no longer be human anymore. In the ancient world, the sun is always represented as a pyramid, and as common as these structures may be, they contain a blessing and a curse, celebration and fear, and the reason is here. This is the Aztec Pyramid of the Sun, and it is called Teotihuacan. And this strange name represents the sun, and it also represents our new terrifying human ability. Teotihuacan is ancient, and yet it tells us something that our forefathers did before us. Because this name actually means the place where man became God. This level of accomplishment signals the end of our world, as it has for the last 100 million years. And for 100 million years, we have been hearing the voices of our ancestors, hearing the voices of the heavens. A cave painting warning us, a stela, and desert lines, all warning us of something that is to come. If this story appears to be a bit too familiar, it is. The knowledge of the Stargate is found in nearly every ancient civilization in the world. It is a story that is repeated over and over again. And yet, what is so sad about this story is that every nation that comes to the understanding of this knowledge and every nation that reaches into the gate of the sun are never heard from ever again. Their nation and the world is completely destroyed. The knowledge of the Stargate is always the last knowledge ever given on Earth. And after that, mankind is destroyed.